Belfast with Tom from Negative Equity UK. And Tom, I thought it'd be interesting to speak about the sort of psychology of being a landlord, because speaking from my own experience, I feel a very strong attachment to our rental properties. I see them as our future to help us in our retirement. I've owned them for 15 years. I've put a lot of effort into it. I've suffered a lot of stress to hold on to them. And it can be difficult for landlords to let go if they and face up to the fact that their portfolio might not actually be serving them. And I thought it'd be quite interesting to talk about some obvious indicators that a portfolio is actually not in very good health.
Okay, I think the key point there is in terms of how their portfolio is serving them. Mm-hmm. And one of the main things that we would do is conduct a case review to establish, firstly, is the portfolio serving the client right now today, and then casting our eyes further down the line and see what are the risks and dangers potentially for the future. Mm-hmm. So some of the key indicators that we would be assessing would obviously be we'd need to look at it from a tax perspective in respect of Section 24, of course. And we would also be looking at in terms of, well, what would interest rate rises mean? That may not be something that's potentially on the cards in the immediate future, but we all have to anticipate that that's going to be a problem at some point in the future. Also the lettability of the properties in terms of both their condition, in terms of the rental demand within that area, factoring in void periods, refurbishment costs. There are a myriad of factors for consideration, as well as just the actual potentially level of equity within the property, the remaining term, and those other factors that I've sort of run through.
Because you kind of meet clients, and actually your sort of outcome for them is that they should actually kind of sort themselves out now, because if they don't, the actual pain's going to be a lot greater in the future. And it's hard for landlords when they put a lot of effort in to realise that actually it hasn't worked out, the market's changed, their circumstances have changed. Sometimes they need a reality check, don't they?
Absolutely. In many cases we can conduct a case review with the client, and their portfolio may just need a few, let's say, tweaks in order to keep them in a safe position long term. In other cases, there are going to be some difficult decisions to make. Mm-hmm. And the key thing is, as you've said, is it an element where do they take some pain now, mm-hmm, or potentially greater pain financially at some point in the future? Mm-hmm. And we would implore landlords who think they may have an issue or would just like some peace of mind to speak to us as early as they possibly can. Mm-hmm. It's much easier to fix the sooner we speak to them.
Yes.
We've spoken to a number of landlords who have come to us with really genuine concerns, mm-hmm, and maybe thought that the outcome that would take place would maybe be harsher than actually the reality of it. Mm-hmm. We would always look at a portfolio in terms of, okay, right across the board, where are positions equity-wise, as you've said, are there properties that maybe don't work from a cash flow basis, mm-hmm, or may not work in 12 months from now or some point in the future, that could be sold to actually pay down debt on some of the retained properties, and maybe that might open up other refinance channels as well.
And for landlords that have got into very serious distress with major arrears, LPA receivers threatened, you actually can come in at that point and kind of act as a sort of barrier between them and the lender to negotiate hopefully a resolution that everybody can deal with. That's
right. We're authorised debt advisors, debt mediation service provider, with the Financial Conduct Authority. In many cases we've dealt with landlords with portfolios, mm-hmm, who have decided that they have, in some cases, I'm thinking of one case in particular, the lady had 37 properties, mm-hmm, all 37 properties had to be disposed of. Mm-hmm. And we managed the negotiations around the disposal of all properties, and the subsequent shortfall that was realised, we negotiated a debt settlement which allowed this lady to retain her residence and carry on with her life. Now, she lost 37 properties, but in reality those properties were always going to go wrong. It was a matter of trying to fix it in the best way possible.
Did that lady who had to dispose of 37 properties, did she sort of say to you, oh my God, I just don't want to, I've put so much into them? How did you kind of help her get through that?
Initially,
mentally, I suppose.
Initially she approached us about 6 properties in particular that were an issue. Mm-hmm. So we actually opened up lines of communication with the lender in relation to the 6. The 6 properties were sold, and subsequent shortfall that was realised because those properties were in negative equity, mm-hmm, was settled. Mm-hmm. That process probably took about 9 or 10 months from instruction to completion. Mm-hmm. At the end of that process, the lady then said, look, I'd like to address a few other properties. Now, if we cast our mind back to the initial conversation that I'd had with her, I'd said to her, look, really, you need to address all of these. But she wasn't in the mental space to do that. So the old adage, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And that's basically how we did it.
Okay, well, that's very interesting to hear those kind of case stories, because you're dealing with these kind of case stories every day, aren't you? And we do want to create a kind of forum here at Property Tribes to talk about these issues. I think too often they are kind of swept under the carpet. Landlords in distress feel that they have nowhere to turn, when in reality there are people such as yourselves that they can speak to.
Yes, one of the things that we've found, which has been a real helpful tool that we've used, I'm thinking of a very recent case, is where clients, like for example the lady that I've just mentioned, if a landlord or landlady was to approach us in a similar situation, the lady that I've just given you her case study would be more than prepared to speak to that client and actually explain their the situation that they're in, the outcome that they achieved, and to give them some sort of peace of mind that help is there and it is realistically deliverable.
Fantastic. Well, if you've got any questions about what we've been talking about in this video, or indeed any concerns about arrears on your portfolio, then please do either drop a comment on here, or of course, if you would prefer, you can contact Negative Equity UK in complete confidence and discuss your position with them. They're here to support the Property Tribes community. So thank you very much for your input, Tom. And yeah, we'll keep the conversation going because this is an important topic to address.